Welcome to News 9. You are watching On Point with me. In the first On Point, we will talk about Bangladesh authorities booking 116 Hindu lawyers on false charges. In the second On Point, we will discuss has Eknath Shinde overplayed his hand. But before that, headlines. Bangladesh summons Indian High Commissioner Verma over Agartala mission breach. Indian envoy highlights multifaceted relationship between two countries and says one cannot reduce it to one issue or agenda. Top Lashkar terrorists behind Gagangir and Gandarbal eliminated in Kashmir by security forces. India-China ties have been witnessing improvement. De-escalation next priority, says Jaishankar in Lok Sabha. Opposition stages brief walkout over Sambhal violence in Lok Sabha. Akhilesh Yadav alleges conspiracy by UP government. Pushpa 2 Day 1 advance booking crosses rupees 50 crore mark, 1 million tickets sold. PV Sindhu, two-time Olympic medalist, to marry Hyderabad-based tech executive on December 22nd. Sukhveer Singh Badal in wheelchair begins penance at Golden Temple over religious misconduct. Taj Mahal receives bomb threat via email, turns out to be a hoax. And Uber rolls out India's first water transport service with Shikara booking on its application. Hindu persecution continues in Bangladesh. Bangladesh authorities have booked 116 Hindu lawyers on false charges to prevent them from representing Chinmoy Das in the court case. For this reason, Chinmoy Das' bail hearing was postponed on Tuesday as no lawyer could appear for him. The hearing has now been rescheduled to January 2nd. The rights group has urged the UN Special Rapporteurs to intervene with the interim government of Bangladesh to halt the false prosecution of these 116 lawyers. On Monday, Chinmoy Das' lawyer was brutally beaten. On every given day, Hindus are being targeted. ISKCON members have been told not to smear their forehead with tilak. It is difficult for Hindus to wear symbols associated with Hindu religion now. Hindu leaders are also not being allowed to leave Bangladesh. Let me play out a reaction from the ISKCON, and then we get into this debate as to what has happened in Bangladesh and has the legal system being weaponized against the minority Hindus.
बहुत सारे भक्त जो फोन करते हैं बांग्लादेश से, तो वो बता रहे हैं कि रास्ते में जाने से बहुत भक्तों की पिटाई हो रही है। हमने देखा कि 2-3 दिन पहले 2 भक्त थे, एक जन कंठी पहना हुआ था और तिलक था, तो उसको भीड़ ने इतनी बुरी तरह से पीटा कि उसके पूरा मुंह में देखेंगे लहूलुहान है, पूरा मुंह खून से भर गया। और दूसरे एक और युद्ध को पकड़ा तो बोला कि तुम ISKCON में जाएगा तो तुमको मार देंगे, और फिर उससे कान पकड़ के उन्होंने उठक बैठक कराई, लातों से मारा। तो ये तस्वीर हम देख रहे हैं वहां पर से आ रही है, और ये भी देख रहे हैं कि जब वहां पर भीड़ अलग अलग इलाकों में निकल रही है तो उनके हाथों में तलवार है और वो लोग बोल रहे हैं चिल्ला चिल्ला करके कि हम ISKCON के भक्तों को किडनैप करेंगे, टॉर्चर करेंगे और मार देंगे। तो ऐसी स्थिति में ये तो बहुत ही स्वाभाविक है कि भक्तों को बचकर रहा जाए। तो जो भी मेरे को वहां पर ब्रह्मचारी या भक्त फोन करता है तो मैं यही बोलता हूँ, और वो लोग भी बोलते हैं कि हाँ ऐसे ही, हम लोग तो वैसे ही मंदिर से निकल नहीं रहे हैं, घरों से नहीं निकल रहे हैं। तो इसीलिए हमने बताया कि और बाकी जो कांग्रेगेशन के लोग हैं वो अगर कंठी पहन, जैसे कंठी हम लोग इस तरह पहनते हैं तो ये दिखता है, तो मैं कहा कि आप लंबा करके पहन लीजिए कि दिखे ना। तो वो तिलक है तो हो सकता है तिलक सिर्फ पानी का तिलक लगा लीजिए जिससे दिखाई ना दे। जो बांग्लादेश की इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट है वो दुर्गा पूजा से, आपको याद होगा कि कुछ दिन पहले उन्होंने एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस किया था, और उनके जो इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट के जो एडवाइजर थे उन्होंने हिंदुओं को एडवाइस किया था कि, बताया था, एडवाइस नहीं किया था, बताया था, इंस्ट्रक्शन दिया था कि अजान के 5 मिनट पहले और अजान के 5 मिनट बाद हिंदू ना तो शंख बजा सकता है या ना तो पूजा कर सकता है, और दुर्गा पूजा के दौरान जितने भी पूजा मंडप है वहां पर एकदम कंप्लीट साइलेंस होना चाहिए, कोई भी पूजा नहीं चल सकती है अजान के समय। तो जब सरकार खुद ही बता रही है कि जब अजान के समय आपको सारी पूजा बंद करना पड़ेगा, कोई कीर्तन नहीं चला सकते अपने घर के अंदर भी, तो ये तो स्वाभाविक है कि ये हम जब देख रहे हैं कि जब वहां पर जो भीड़ है, अनकंट्रोल्ड भीड़, इतने भयंकर तरीके से वो जो स्लोगन है, आप उसके बहुत सारे रूप है। बोलते कि बांग्ला में वो लोग बोल रहे हैं कि हम इस्कॉन के भक्तों को ऐसा मारेंगे कि उनकी चमड़ी उधर जाएगी, और पूरा वो लोग डिस्क्राइब करके बता रहे। कुछ लोग बता रहे हैं कि हम लोग पहले पकड़ेंगे, किडनैप करेंगे, फिर टॉर्चर करेंगे, उसके बाद मारेंगे।
So Radha Raman Das point blank illustrating what is happening in Bangladesh. On this, I am joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. Thank you, madam, for joining us. Suhas Chakma, Director Risk and Rights and Risk Analysis Group, who had actually petitioned the United Nations, and Salim Samad, senior journalist and columnist, who joins me live from Dhaka. But first, I'll go to Suhas Chakma. Suhas, you have taken up this issue, given the petition. In your petition, you have said these 116 lawyers have been targeted. Just can you take us through it?
Well, I think on 26th of November, when Chinmoy Brahmachari was produced before the court, and thereafter some violence took place. And after this violence had taken place on 26th, on 27, one person, Kanali Khan, had filed a complaint with the police saying that these are the 116 persons who are involved in acts of violence for attacking the Muslim majority, etc. Then he named these 116 persons. Then I have been informed thereafter that actually all these people who are mentioned in this complaint are actually lawyers who are practicing the Chittagong districts and session court. So effectively, all the Hindu minority lawyers in the Chittagong districts and session court, they are now facing criminal prosecution. So it is in a way intended to create a system where the Hindu minorities, including Chinmoy Brahmachari, will not have access to any kind of legal protection. So it's denying, the protection, that's equality before law, equal protection of the law, which is a guaranteed fundamental rights under the Constitution of Bangladesh. It's a guaranteed rights under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It interferes with the entire administration of justice, because you, at the end of the day, cannot hold trial if there are no lawyers. And that's what we have seen today, that when Chinmoy Brahmachari was produced, there was no lawyer for him, to appear for him. So for that reason, he has been, or the hearing has been postponed to 2nd of January. So the interim period, which is from today till 2nd of January, one could say that the entire detention is illegal because there was no hearing. And there was no hearing because the lawyer was beaten to pulp, and he is struggling in the ICU at this point of time. So if you look at it, it basically means that the entire justice system, with respect to the ISKCON and the Hindus in this particular case, has collapsed. So if you look at it in India or anywhere in the world, presumption of innocence and access to lawyer are fundamental rights which cannot be denied. So that's why even when in the case of India, even if you are a 2611 accused like Azman Kasab, you still have to be provided a lawyer, because without the lawyer you cannot hold the trial. So in this case, I think it's extremely unfortunate situation that the entire religious minority community is being denied access to the lawyer, and the government of Bangladesh should have provided the lawyer itself.
Okay, let me, ठीक है, fair, you have made the point. You have made the point. Let me go to Mr. Samad. Your comments on this, Mr. Samad, and then I'll go to Ambassador Veena Sikri.
Okay, thank you for having me. Regarding the 116 number that you have been saying, there are also journalists. So it's not all lawyers. And those lawyers or whoever has been accused for the murder of the other lawyer. So you can understand this is nothing to, of course this is victimization, and this is done by the Lawyers Association in the Chittagong. So this is nothing to do with the government. So government cannot do. And incidentally, I am a victim of sedition case. So I know much better than whoever is speaking on this show that I have also been victimized, and my lawyers were also never came to submit for a bail. And their lawyer had to go to the higher court, but I'm in the high court, to get me a bail. And it took about 2 months to have the lawyer set up in the year. But coming back to the point is, yes, it's very unfortunate. Whatever is happening, it should be condemned, and this shouldn't have continued for the last several days, or has been for the last several weeks, maybe. It can be more precise. So obviously you can understand.
Mr. Samad, why is it happening? I think that's the question I should have asked first. Why is this happening?
Why?
Yes, why?
What? This is happening for the last 40, 52 years. So why are you talking about only 3 days? Why are you not talking about, this is a legacy. The perpetrators has never been brought to justice in the last 52 years. That is what I am trying to argue for the last several years. This is a legacy. And if the perpetrators know that I will not be punished, and they have never been punished before, so obviously they will go ahead. And this is definitely, you can understand, there is the Hifazat Islam and the other religious groups have very, I would say, radicalized Muslims. So radical Muslims are not under a party or not under organizations. So it has become very difficult for them they become Hindus or whoever the temples are a soft target. So obviously they have been targeted. But you cannot blame either the government. Of course, you can say the law and order. You can talk about the police. You can talk about the other law enforcing agencies. Yes, they are not doing what they are supposed to do. Thank you.
Okay. Ambassador Sikri, my question to you is, if this is not religious persecution, then what is religious persecution?
Absolutely, it is religious persecution. I think Mr. Salim Samad could only give one excuse that it's happened to him, and so it's been happening in the last 7 years, and so now what can you do about it? So this is absolutely no excuse at all, because the interim government for day one has been criticizing what has been happening in the last few years and saying that we are going to change that and we're going to bring in the rule of law and we're going to bring in law and order. But what is happening is the exact opposite. The legal system has been completely twisted. It has been completely twisted because, as Mr. Suhas Chakma quite rightly mentioned, there is absolutely no reason why any accused should be denied a hearing. And for the judge to close the hearing because there's no lawyer. Actually, if there's no lawyer, a free lawyer is to be provided. Free legal aid is to be given. The state has to provide a lawyer. All these are very much a part of the legal system of Bangladesh and of India and of many other parliamentary democracies like Britain and others. We all know this is a very well-known legal system, but this has been completely twisted. This whole business of saying that 116 lawyers have been charged with the murder of one person, and so nobody can, this is done deliberately. Can you charge 116 person? There is no even visual evidence what happened, how it happened. And this whole business of destroying the entire legal system just to persecute the minorities. This is a real travesty of democracy.
A lot of people in India would also like to know, why is ISKCON being targeted? I'm sure that's not the one Hindu or only Hindu organization working in Bangladesh. Why has ISKCON become the face of it?
Well, I think that the Jamaat-e-Islami and other fundamentalists that Mr. Salim Samad referred to, I mean, at least he's accepting that they are the real power behind the throne and they are really running the government. It's the Jamaat-e-Islami and the Hizb ut-Tahrir who are running the government. And their plan is to destroy all religions other than Islam and to make sure that it is becomes a Islamic state. This is the declared objective, that, you know, there can be no constitution except the Quran, nothing else except that. That is their declared constitution. That is their declared objective. And it is, you know, in keeping with that objective that they have set out to destroy all organizations. They have, of course, they first weakened completely the Hindu, Buddhist, Christian Oikyo Jodh, the Unity Council, and now they're trying to destroy ISKCON because they believe that ISKCON has many worshippers, many devotees who come and follow the temples and do the worship there in the temples, and so they're trying to weaken it so that they will leave the country. But I think the fundamental fact that seems to have irked the Jamaat-e-Islami and the religious fundamentalists in Bangladesh is that the Hindu minorities have, and all the Buddhist and Christian and Hindu minorities have declared that this is our country as well. We want our rights. We have citizenship rights. And we want the legal system to protect us. So I think this is the issue now that has to be taken up very strongly, not only by the Commonwealth, nor by all others. This blatant display of, you know, religious fundamentalism.
But, you know, there's also a question of history. Suhas, you know, a similar thing happened with a lot of people in Myanmar. But then most of them had migrated during colonial times. But the Hindus are also indigenous to Bangladesh. I mean to say, it's an indigenous community. So if it is an indigenous community, why is this strong othering taking place at a point of time which is talking about democracy, rights, empowerment, doing away of dictatorial regime of Hasina? There is a difference. Suhas.
Well, I think it is Hasina too. If you look at it today, what you have in Dr. Yunus is Hasina too, and it's worse than that. At least in Hasina's time, the minorities had protection. If you were a political opponent, then obviously you did not have any democratic space, but the normal citizens, minorities, everybody had access to the rule of law. But in this particular case, what I am worried about is that the people who are advising or who are acting as the advisors of the government, they actually in a way emboldening the students and the fundamentalist groups by, you know, by making still voices on the relationship between the Hindus and the majority Muslims. And in this particular case, this 116 persons, they are not charged for killing the lawyer or the mother of the lawyer. That is a separate FIR. This is a completely separate FIR, and I had circulated, and there is no reference to whatsoever that this 116 persons, we are engaged in any kind of violent acts against anybody. They were basically accused of carrying arms, swords, and etc., and intimidating the people who are praying at that point of time. So it's basically to make sure that the process becomes the punishment. So I think one of the reasons why this attacks on the Hindu minorities are taking place, it's not a new phenomenon, but one would have hoped that, you know, with a return to democracy, which they call, there would be some respect for the rule of law, some respect for the democratic space. But if you look across the spectrum, I mean, the journalists have never been attacked so much. So earlier, if you were opponent of Hasina, you were attacked. But today, if you are some way or the other connected with Hasina, then you are being attacked. So whether it's Reporters Sans Frontiers or Committee to Protect Journalists or us, and the number of, you know, I mean, the accreditation which have been taken away from the journalists, and they have been basically made unemployment for the agencies and etc. And it's not my saying. If you look at the report of the Transparency International Bangladesh, you would see that there has been so much deterioration of overall situation in Bangladesh that it's unrecognizable. It is absolutely unrecognizable, okay. And the government has no control whatsoever. So not only there is a mob rule, and that mob rule, you know, has transcended the streets of Bangladesh, and it has reached the judicial space, the courts. So if the courts do not function, and okay. The courts do not feel obliged to provide a lawyer, then, you know, what could you do? If The judge had said that there is no lawyer today, and it would be held, the hearing would be held tomorrow, and the government should provide free legal lawyer. Then one could have understood that the hearing could not take place today. But you have postponed it till 2nd of January, and that's what calls into question, because what we see in the streets of in Bangladesh, you now see in the courts. So that's a big problem when the judicial system
this brings us to two questions. Has the so-called quote-unquote revolution, because a lot of my guests would say from Dhaka that it's a revolution that has taken place in Bangladesh. So quote-unquote, has the revolution broken down into mobocracy where there is no rule of law? And secondly, what does it mean for India-Bangladesh relationship? If you look at Northeast, if you look at other states, the people living on the Indian side of the border are pretty much agitated. It has become a domestic issue. It has become an issue which has crossed the border of Bangladesh. I'll be back on this. I'll come straight away to you, Mr. Samad, but after a short break.
Bayern München against Bayer Leverkusen.
Musiala!
The record cup winners against the current holders.
Oh, it's magnificent!
It was a Bayern triumph in 2020 when they met in the final.
Alaba!
Bayern lifted the trophy.
Gnabry with a chance, 2-0. Radetzky makes a hash of it.
Despite Sven Bender and Kai Havertz's goals, Bayern were too strong.
Lewandowski just dinks it over the keeper. Kai Havertz, audacious shot.
The record cup winners were victorious again. Bayern won 4-2, another trophy for Bayern. Revenge is in the air for Leverkusen.
Patrick Schick! It has come to Sané!
Who will get through to the next round? Will it be Bayern or will it be Leverkusen who spend the winter still in the cup?
India and Sweden bilateral ties go as far as India's independence.
We have now more than 75 years of diplomatic relations. Green transition is a survival issue for us, for the world, and also for India. Even the small solutions have a big impact. For us, the will to invest in India is already there. India is a country that keeps us busy. The potential is there and we are ready to exploit it. That's actually how you build the culture of bridges.
And this is The Diplomat.
Thank you, Barun Das. I think the entire TV9 team for putting together such a great, fantastic show.
I would like to congratulate TV9 for organizing the first ever News 9 Global Summit, and I'm sure it will be a great success.
It's indeed an immense pleasure and honor for me to be present here in this News 9 Global Summit.
And welcome back. We were talking about 116 lawyers being booked so that Mr. Das cannot be represented. Let me go across to Mr. Samad, who joins us from Dhaka. Mr. Samad, who is calling the shots? This is evidently having an impact in the entire Northeast, as you must have seen the popular response or the reactions that have taken place.
Yes, sir. The Northeast and West Bengal, there are, I am not going to defend the government, but definitely I would not use the word, a harsh word, but the protesters on the border had forced into 2 border posts in Bangladesh. So they really, literally wanted to possibly barge into Bangladesh and protest. So this is the height of the anger which is also happening on the other side of the border. So you can understand it is not only what has happened in the Deputy High Commission in Agartala or in Kolkata, that is of course another issue. But of course, both Bangladesh and India has talked about it. So hopefully they will be protected. Similarly, the Indian High Commission.
Mr. Samar, I don't want you to either defend the government or apologize for them or fight for them. You are an independent journalist. I want to know from you, who is in control? Yeah. I mean, say, who will guarantee the security for Hindus? That is all I want from you.
The interim government is in power. Why do you have such a conspiracy theory that the interim government has not able to work? Interim government is busy with the reforms. So you can understand there are several dozens of reforms have already been instituted, and they are working. They are working on it. So it is obviously, you can understand, Professor Yunus is not a spokesperson that he will speak every day. He's supposed to speak with dignitaries or the government and the bureaucrats. He's not talking to the students every day. He's not talking to the political parties every day. So obviously, the show is there. So they are waiting for the reform. So once the reforms is there, is possibly that will be the time when needed. But I want to go back to Suhas Chakma.
One more question. Then you can speak on your own sumoto subject. Yes, he is busy with reforms, but that cannot be at the cost of the Hindus. Understandable, he's a very busy man. Understandable, he's a very busy man. But that cannot be at the cost of the minorities, or the Chakmas, or the Hindus, or the Ahmadiyas.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Yunus is not the Home Minister. That you have to understand. That's a different department, the different law enforcement agencies, the other ministries are the different departments. So it is not with the police. There are other paramilitary police forces also engaged. So that is their duty to take care of the law and order. If they fail, yes, of course they are being criticized. You don't think that the media, the mainstream media mostly from Dhaka as well as the television, they are lambasting the law and order situation every day. So it is not only that what you are looking at in Bangladesh, it is also happening here. The criticism is also very much in Bangladesh. And if you go back to Suhas Chakma, of course, he mentioned about, yes, but what happened I was in his trust for 14 years, covering the insurgency and the peace treaty. And of course, and I have never found a single case of an attack or the military operation or the anti-insurgency operation, the Chakmas or the Tripuras or Marmas or whoever in the Adivasi in the hill tracts has been got justice. So it is not talking about this government. What about the Mandis? What about the Ghats?
So who is in charge? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. You don't expect Mr. Yunus to speak every given day, but where does the buck stop when it comes to security? Who is in charge?
Who's security? Who is
minorities?
Security you're talking about?
Minorities, Hindus.
Security is supposed to be, there is a separate department, there's a separate ministry, there's separate thousands of people there. They are supposed to take care of this. You don't expect the students will take care of this. It is the police, the law enforcement. They are supposed to take care of it. And of course, there are other agencies, the intelligence, there are others, they are also functioning. Hopefully, and I have told you, I have been telling even the audience that this is not the mainstream media is criticizing the law and order situation, the mobocracy or whatever you describe is happening, and it's been criticized in the mainstream media. You watch television, read newspapers online, you will find hundreds of stories on this every day. So literally it is not working properly.
So you can't expect. But Suhas also made one point.
You expect the Hindus will be
Suhas also made one point. This wasn't the case when Hasina was the Prime Minister. But why has this become a case when she's not there anymore?
This is not true. Absolutely wrong.
Yeah, are you saying that the Hindus were being persecuted even then?
In 2022, then Google my name and find the stories on 2022. Not the entire Bangladesh, there was attack, demolition and vandalization and desecration of the Hindu Durga Puja. None of the perpetrators in 2022, I'm not talking about 2020 there was a massive, 2022, none of the perpetrators were brought to justice. This has been telling for the last decades.
Okay. Okay, Ambassador Sikri, you wanted to come in. I think you had raised your hand.
Yes, I really want to, I don't know why we are listening to what Mr. Salim Samad is saying, because he is not talking about what is happening in Dhaka. In Dhaka, the pretense is that this problem does not exist. It is only us on Indian television and the Indian media which is talking widely about the persecution of minorities, the problems that minorities is facing, the fact that Chinmoy, Krishan Das's lawyer has been brutally attacked and is fighting for his life, that 116 lawyers have been charged so that they cannot represent him. None of this is appearing in the Bangladesh media. There is a complete silence on this issue. There is the pretense that nothing is happening. The only discussion is about the death of the Muslim lawyer and that the cases that have been filed to protect him, etc. There is no mention at all that there is any problem with the minorities. So I think that it is not a question of Mr. Salim Samad trying to pretend that this happened in 22 or it happened in 2001 or whatever it is that it happened. But we do know that even now, under the Durga Puja which was held in 2024, we know that mandaps were attacked, the Jeshwareshwari temple Murti, the idol, was stolen. We know that, that they were told, as you mentioned, that, 5 minutes before and after Azan, nothing will be done. All this has never happened before. There may have been problems, they're all dealt with, and, they're all reported widely in the papers. Everybody talks about it, everybody wants it to stop. But this time, there is absolute, complete omerta, there is complete silence, as though the problem doesn't exist. So I think the attempt to invisibilize, to make invisible the minorities, the Buddhists, the Christians and Hindus, and to pretend that they are not upset, that they pretend nothing is happening with them, this is a travesty of the situation on the ground. The Indian flag has been desecrated in Dhaka. We know that. I have seen visuals where the Indian flag is drawn on the ground and then people are walking all over it because it is drawn on the ground deliberately in a busy area. Now, while the Bangladesh government is calling our High Commissioner and talking about what happened in Agartala or talking about what happened in other places, they haven't even spoken about what's happening in Dhaka, how the Indian flag is being desecrated. I have seen those visuals. And is any mention of this anywhere? Is there any mention in the Bangladesh papers? Any mention that this is a complete, I would say, an attempt to pretend that a situation is not what it is. And to compare it with anything else that as though it happened in Sheikh Hasina's time, we know that everybody was criticizing the Digital Security Act. But now, under the present interim government, the journalists are not allowed to write. Their press accreditation has been taken away. They have been thrown in jail accused of murder. They are not allowed. They have lost their jobs. So it is a complete control of the media, where if you don't write what they want you to write, you get attacked, like the lawyer of Chinmoy Krishan Das has been attacked and has found himself in hospital fighting for his life. So I think we have to come down to reality. I would like to just Salim,
and I think we should be mindful of the fact that he has been booked under National Security Act. I mean, so it's not a small thing. Being booked under NSA is a big thing. Mr. Samad, you wanted to come in?
Yes, I wanted to share only one point. That whenever I compare what has happened before, you have to just discuss the history, the legacy that is happening. In the Sheikh Hasina's period, on the 10th, on the Dashami, the Durga Puja was taken away on the 9th, not once but twice. BBC has a detailed report on it. Twice.
I don't think we are here to compare. I don't think we are here to compare what Sheikh Hasina's time and this time. We're not here to compare that. We're not here to compare that. That is not the discussion. The discussion is what is happening today. Please don't divert attention from what is happening today. Please don't do that.
Why don't you talk about
what happened? You are doing a great disservice to your constitution, to secularism and democracy in your constitution.
Okay, Suhas, you also wanted to come in? Suhas? No, I think Suhas is raising his hand. Suhas?
No, I just wanted to mention a couple of points. The first point is, we are not justifying Sheikh Hasina's rule. What I am saying is that Hasina would not have allowed and did not allow the attacks on minorities to be part of the state policy.
Correct.
And at this point of time, what we have is that it's a part of the state policy. In fact, if you look at the
I think that's an important line, Suhas. I think that's an important line. I do as a moderator tend to agree. Social fabric can be radicalized and they can behave differently from the state. But here it seems that the radical social fabric is getting aligned with the state. I think here lies the difference. I tend to agree.
If you look at the case filed against Chinmoy Das, what is the case about? That some people from the ISKCON had put up the flags which apparently was on the top of the Bangladesh national flag, which was put by the Boishamya Birodhi Chhatra Andolan. Now, if you put in a particular post, then if the wind comes, these flags keep on moving, and somehow if the flag of ISKCON had gone up above the flags put up by the students, then it becomes sedition. And apart from this particular sentence in the paragraph, in the page 2, there was no other concrete evidence. So that's not a text which the government should come out and openly defend it, saying that there are specific charges. And he is not even the prime accused. He is only one of the conspirators. So they should have arrested the people who have performed or committed the offense. Then the conspirator should have come. But there are so many conspirators. You do not arrest any one of them. You just pick up Chinmoy Das. And while he was on the way to Chittagong, and he should have been arrested in Chittagong itself. Why do you have to arrest him in Dhaka? Just alert the police in Chittagong that he is landing up in this flight at this point of time. So there was a purpose behind his arrest. So whatever the reason may be, I think people have expectation that, the reform will take place in the country and there will be some semblance of the rule of law. And I think everybody in Bangladesh is disappointed with the fact that there is no rule of law and it is not what the reform is meant. And if this situation continues, I live in a border state in the northeast. So you have seen the reaction in Kolkata and Agartala, which is in the neighborhood of Bangladesh. And obviously, India has a strong case not to see that, the whatever problems the minorities have in Bangladesh, they spill over to India. The only concern which I have is that if you are leading a reformist government, you should be careful. And I think what has happened in the entire process is that all the advisors, starting with Dr. Yunus, they got fixated with Hasina, and they cannot see India beyond Hasina. And if you look at their language or the way they speak, it is as if India has become the political opponent of the interim government. If that perception remains, I'm sorry to say that it will lead to major crisis. India need not be treated as the political opponent of the government of the day. They are an interim government. They will hold elections, a new government will come and they will run away or they will go away, whatever. But if you
I think just to put in perspective, Ministry of External Affairs, Suhas, has issued a statement that the government is ever ready to engage with the Bangladesh government on any issue. I think that statement has been released by Minister of External Affairs. I think that makes it amply very clear. Mr. Samad, I think Suhas made a very strong point that India is not a player in the politics of Bangladesh.
India should stop looking into Bangladesh through the lens of Sheikh Hasina.
That's the point you want to make? That's the only point you want to make?
It.
Madam, is it correct that, the people in Bangladesh think that, we are looking at Bangladesh from the point of view of Sheikh Hasina?
Not at all. We
Not
have
the lens.
From day one, our government has said that we are prepared to engage with the interim government right from the very first day. But even by the 8th of August, when our Prime Minister sent the message to Professor Muhammad Yunus on his becoming the chief advisor, by that time the situation against the minorities had already become fairly disastrous, because even in the first 4 days there were hundreds of attacks, and our Prime Minister felt constrained to mention about the situation of the minorities even in that first message. And in reply, Professor Muhammad Yunus had telephoned our Prime Minister and conveyed the assurance that he would look into it and that he would make sure that communal harmony is maintained. After that day, after that telephone call, there had been not a word from either Professor Muhammad Yunus or from anybody in Bangladesh about the situation, except to assure that there is communal harmony. Even the last note put out by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Dhaka has mentioned this. Oh, but there is communal harmony. There was Durga Puja. Not a mention about Chinmoy Krishan Das's case. Not a mention that he is in jail. He's not being allowed to get a lawyer. His lawyer has been attacked. Other lawyers have been charged. So he's without any kind of legal defense for himself. And according to every law of parliamentary democracy and the penal code in Bangladesh, if there is no lawyer available, the state is to provide a lawyer. But that is not happening. Instead, the case has been postponed by 1 month, which is unheard of, which makes, the detention of Chinmoy Krishan Das completely untenable. it's not in keeping with the law. So I think that this is the most important point, that while India is ready to talk to the Bangladesh government, we are not seeing it in any way from the point of view of Sheikh Hasina. Rather, it is the Bangladesh government which is again and again referring to Sheikh Hasina. We are talking about, dealing with the interim government on its own, but we cannot help but raise these issues regarding all the issues that the minorities are facing. The Christians, President Trump was constrained to talk about the minorities. The chaos in Bangladesh, the barbaric attack on Hindus and Christians. Is he obsessed with Sheikh Hasina? Is he saying it because of Sheikh Hasina? You think President Trump is not saying it because it's an independent assessment? And all that Bangladesh could say that President Trump has been misinformed. So I think that the attempt to create the whole world as being against Bangladesh, and that Bangladesh, the interim government, is the sole paragon of law and virtue, it doesn't carry any ice. It doesn't cut any ice. So it's really becoming more and more.
I think Ambassador Sikri, the larger issue is that the forces that have been unleashed after Sheikh Hasina left Bangladesh, they have seized control in terms of influence and the operational aspect of the state. And it is for this reason we find that the number of attacks on minorities have gone up. And this is not the day when traditional media can control information. Social media, various other channels can very democratically provide information. And if we go through the forums in which these events have been noted and documented, we will find that every given day a particular act of vandalism has taken place. And that is worrisome because it is not emanating from the security forces. It is not emanating from political actors. It has emanated from the civil society. And it has emanated from people. That is why it is more worrisome.
I agree with you fully. That it is emanating of the people, and there are totally Islamist forces in control. But what I'm trying to say is a matter of great worry, the complete way in which the interim government is ignoring these events, not talking about them, not mentioning them, not allowing them to be covered in the newspapers, so that it is a kind of a pretense that we are talking about something else and they don't know what we are talking about. So I think this is the big worrisome factor which has to be brought to the notice of the entire world. Certainly all the institutions, the UN.
You have summed it up very well, and that is what I feel. Since it's emanating from the civil society, it is more worrisome and it requires some sort of a political intervention. And I always say it's like Gandhi in Noah Kheli. In the sense, you require someone to say the truth that Hindus are being persecuted, and don't do it. It's not the right thing to do. And I think no one has said so, no one has gone to the spot, and no one has empathized, and no one has created that political agency or the momentum so that the people or the radical forces subside for time, because I don't think they're going away. That's my assessment. Thank you all of you. Thank you all of you for joining. I've really fallen short of time, and this is all on All Point One, but we will be back after a short